Okay, thank you everyone for joining this afternoon's Top Gear session. If you missed my slight introduction at the beginning, my name is Evan Turner. I'm the Service Product Manager at Pentana Solutions, and today's session is all about online service bookings. So Pentana Solutions have an online service product that allows you and your dealerships to provide your customers with the ability to book their own service online. Um, Before we dive right into it, I will ask if you can please mute your microphone. I have been muting participants as they join, but there will be an opportunity to ask questions at the end of the session. And if your microphone doesn't work, please use the chat feature and I'll be able to see those as well and answer those questions along the way or at the end as well. I'm aware that we have some dealers that have joined us today, or some people that have joined us where their dealership is already using the Pentana Solutions OSB or online service bookings products, so we're familiar with some of the functions already, but we also have some participants who have never seen or used it before. So just to make sure that we cover all bases, I will go through the overview or an introduction if you like, to the product, which we'll go through fairly quickly. And then that will flow on to the features and benefits of the solution and what it can offer you and your customers. Then on to some enhancements which we've made to the to be available in the Era Power application. And then, as I mentioned, there'll be some question and answers at the end. Okay, so I'm going to jump across to my web browser now. And you should all be able to see my web screen or my Chrome browser that shows Book Online Now. And if you can't see that, please let me know. But essentially, this is a online booking portal, if you like, where you can make available to your customers to be able to book in their own vehicles 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, directly into your DMS. So whether that be EraNet or EraPower, it will book directly into the DMS. And then essentially, apart from providing your customers convenience, also freeing up some of your own service advisors or in fact call centers, if you run call centers, their time to carry out some other tasks. Now, the way that it's presented to your customers is there's a couple of ways. It is embedded into your dealer webpage, and therefore the coloring and the theming would be applied to match your dealer webpage. Or as you see my example here, it's a separate screen altogether where, you know, for an example, a dealership might have a button on their page that says book your service here, and you click on that and it may open this as a separate page. But in either case, it is mobile responsive, given that most of the traffic through online service bookings comes from a mobile device. So from our studies, we see that a lot of customers are using mobile devices and also booking in those in and out of hours. So if I just put that into a mock tablet / phone mode, you can see now that how responsive it is and how it presents on a phone device. You can upload your headers, background images, watermarks, etc. So all that configuration is available there as well. Now, getting into the actual process, I'm going to start off with the overview of booking. So as I mentioned, that's available to EraNet and EraPower customers. I'm going to go through the booking process, talk about the result of that. It may prompt you for some questions that you can note down and ask towards the end of the session. And then we're going to jump into some of the recent enhancements that allow your customers to manage their own appointment. So in the center of the page, we've got two options. So we've got a quick book option, and we've also got a My Car service or a welcome back where your customer can log in and view their details, so view their vehicles, the history, and in the recent enhancement, any open bookings or appointments. The first step I'm going to do is book in using my QuickBook option. So I enter my registration number, enter the kilometers as a customer, and then the process will guide the customer through a 5-step booking process. So we try and make it nice and easy and simple. And if you picture it, for example, as a different step a different process that steps your customers through what they need to complete in order to create a booking, as opposed to a service advisor who would have complete functionality in front of the DMS. So the first step one, it identifies the vehicle. Then as the dealership, we work with the dealer to configure locations, and then you can click on Google Maps. That will take you to Google Maps to show that location. In this case, I'll choose the second one and go to next. Now this is a real-time integration, so there's no updating or available hours of loan car availability, your service offerings, all in here. It's all done back in the DMS. And then that information is read in real time from online service bookings or by online service bookings. So now I'm in step 3 as a customer. The dealer may have chosen, in this case they have, to publish weight, courtesy, loan car, or nothing as the transport options available, but they're configurable. So much of what you see on screen through the process I'll show you is configurable by the dealer, but I'll obviously want to show you some of the most common configurations. So now as a customer, I might say, well, I want to wait for this car. So I'll choose wait. This calendar is now refreshed based on the real-time availability of when you have wait positions available. And we might book it for the, say, 27th, and then go next. Now what that does, again, in real time, it goes back to the DMS, says, we know this car, they want to book it in on the 28th. Are there any recommendations for this car? In this case, it's come back with a 60. Your customer can click on the more option. It'll tell them what's involved in the 60,000. But as a dealer, you may also want to promote some other services. So whether that be things like a wheel alignment or aircon sanitization, safety checks, etc., you have the ability to promote those and create that transparency or that opportunity with your customers. I'm going to accept that recommendation. It then takes me to a secondary step where the dealer can actually decide, is there anything else we want to show, like repair operation codes? In this case, we've only got the one grouping or the one category, and then that would show the customer what's available within that category. And again, this is all configurable by the dealer, and we work with the dealership when we set up online service bookings to set up the relevant options. Go next here. The pricing is also controlled, so I'm showing pricing here. Some dealers do or don't show pricing. It's really up to the setups. And in the final step, in step 5, it is a direct integration into Bay Diary if you're running that, so it knows what time slots you have available, whether you take multiple cars per time slot, and in fact you have an additional override or additional setting for that in online service bookings as well. I might say I booked it in at 7:30. I'll leave my pickup time. I'm waiting for it. And enter the mobile address, email address, and how I want to be confirmed. I can type in here any additional instructions, and then at the bottom of the page, I can read a privacy policy, and then I have to acknowledge that I accept that in order to book, which is the final step. Now, when booking this appointment, it creates that directly into the DMS, as I mentioned earlier, but it will also send an SMS confirmation off to the customer. It will send an email confirmation off to the customer with the details. And on that email will be an electronic calendar invite, so they can add that entry into the calendar, whether it be Outlook or some other application. But importantly, also the dealership receives notification that this booking was created. So they receive an email goes to a dedicated email address for the location it was booked in at. And then also in the appointment itself, we identify whether an appointment was created from online service bookings. So you really can then get some measurements around how much traffic are we getting in from online service bookings, and is there anything that maybe we want to change around how we promote this. So that's the overview of the actual booking process. You can see it was pretty simple. And as I mentioned, it's available to Eranet and EraPower dealers. On the right-hand side there, where we have a welcome back on My Car Service, I'm now going to log in. And by logging in, your customer has basically has an account that they can log in with, and that account consists of their email and a password. Now they have the opportunity to register themselves via the option down the bottom, which you can advise your customer to do. Or alternatively, some dealers actually incorporate that into their process. So whether that be at the time of delivery of a new car sale or a used car sale, or it might be when the customer's picking up their vehicle for their current service. And the way that works is if I jump into book appointment and type in a registration number, anywhere where you access the customer, I can see there's an OSB button. If I click on that, this shows all the email addresses registered to this customer, and it's just a simple matter of clicking activate, and it sends off the registration to that email address with a random password that they would log in with, and they can either choose to leave that or change it. But it really takes the step away from, Mr. Customer, you can go to our website and register yourself, and you can now say, instead, well, I've registered you, you can log on and view this appointment that we just created for your next service, or view your service history. So that's available anywhere you can access the customer detail record. So in appointments, ROs, entity maintenance, as an example. Also, a really good example of this is if it's a business or a fleet customer where that customer may have multiple contacts. Every one of those contacts may have a different email address, and those all or a multiple of those email addresses can be registered and all log in to access the history. So I'm going to log in now into my car service. And the first thing we see are the vehicles that are associated to this customer. So in this case, it's the Toyota Corolla. I may have multiple vehicles, they'll all show for me as well. Now, if you're not running Era Power, you will not see the current bookings because that's an Era Power feature. But otherwise, regardless of what DMS you're running, whether it be Era Power, EraNet, you could click on View History. It would take me to the history page, and I can view then any previous history on this vehicle, which would allow a customer to see whether they have internal work, warranty, or customer. However, there are controls around that for the dealership to define, well, do we actually want to show any internal work on history, or do we want to show warranty work on the history? All those controls lie in the hands of the dealership. And of course, you wouldn't want to show any history relating to previous owners, or perhaps even when the dealership owned the vehicle. So as a fleet customer, it's pretty handy now because they can view their service history all from the portal. They can book in their vehicle from here as well. And in fact, we've also got some call centers internally within the dealership that use this as well because, for example, the service advisors or the service department are busy. The receptionist can pick up the phone, take a booking through online service bookings, and it goes straight into the DMS, all without having to be trained on what would normally be the appointment entry or the appointment booking process. If I choose to book a service from here, the first step takes me to where I enter the kilometers, but every step after that is the same. The only difference when I get to step 5 is that those details will default for me. So my name, my phone number, email address, and that's the only time we ever show those that are linked to that vehicle. We don't show those if you haven't logged in to authenticate yourself. So I'll click on My Vehicles and go back to the list. So underneath that, the Toyota Corolla, we see my current booking. So these are the recent enhancements. They're available in Era Power Release 3.2, which is due out fairly soon. And as part of that release, there's some documentation that tells you how to turn these features on if you wanted to. And this obviously is for dealers who are already running online service bookings today. And if you're not running it and you're interested, please make sure you contact your business relationship manager from Pentana Solutions. But from here, I can see that there are 3 bookings. There's a couple that are in the past and the one that I created today. If I click on View, that will show me the details that I just created today for the 27th. And then I have the options down the bottom to either cancel or change that. Now, a dealer has control around whether you wanted to show both options, maybe one of them, or nothing at all. So whenever a customer wants to cancel or change a booking, they always have to phone up. But on top of that, there are controls where you may say, well, I'm happy with my customers changing or cancelling their bookings, but not with it if it's within 5 days of the appointment, or not if it's within 3 days of the appointment. So you can put controls around that as well. But to change, it's a simple matter of clicking change booking. That retrieves the most current information from that appointment from Era Power. So an example might be that they've created a normal booking. The advisor has then modified that because they've phoned up to make some changes. When you retrieve the booking here, as a customer, it knows about those last changes that were made, and they'll see the most current state as well, so they know what's on there already. Now, here I chose a wait job on the 27th. I could choose, say, loan car, and it goes off and retrieves the most current availability for loan car, and it will only show me the days where there is a car available. So if we get, a loan car pool where there's no cars available, then those days will not be available for selection, and the user will have to select another day where there is a car available. So in this case, the 27th is still available, the loan car, but I may want to change it to the 28th. So I've chosen a loan car, click the 28th. I may say, well, it was actually the 70,000 that I'm due for, not the 60. So I'll add that and delete the 60 off. You can see this has got pricing for my loan car, because in my setups we have pricing associated to a loan car, but a lot of dealers don't charge for loan cars, in which case it would either say no charge or a POA if there is a pricing but you didn't want to display it. The other thing as well in terms of the service options here, it does validate for those manufacturers that have cap price servicing and actually get a rebate from the manufacturer. So some of those manufacturers we get a feed in from, and we can validate whether that VIN number is authorized for certain services or is applicable to get certain services. And if not, those are excluded. So there are some manufacturers that don't provide that type of integration, but there are some that do, in which case that's applied here as well. So we've changed our service, added the loan car. We now get to the final booking page. It's remembered my 7:30 drop off. It's asked me to select a new pickup time because I've got a different shop time on Friday to what I had on the Thursday. So I'll say I'll choose 3 p.m. My name, phone number, and other details are still there, but I can update those. And then it's just a simple matter of confirming that change. Once it's confirmed, that booking goes off to as an email and an SMS off to the customer again with an updated invite. And the dealership also gets a notification to say, here's a booking that was created or that exists in Era Power, but it has now been changed by the customer. And on that email, we actually show you what it was and what it has been changed to. Because I think that's quite handy as an advisor or as a service department to know what was it before, what did they actually change. In this case, we would have seen that it had a 60 on it with no loan car, and it was actually booked for the 27th, not the 28th previously. I'll go back to my vehicles, and I'll go back into that appointment now. I can cancel it easy. It's a pretty simple step. I'm within the outside of the lead time, or what I call the lead time. So the dealer's saying you can cancel this appointment if you're outside of, say, 5 days of the appointment date. We get a confirmation, and again, dealer gets an email, the customer gets an email with a cancelled Outlook or calendar invite as well. Go back to my vehicles. Now these two here, because they're in the past, we know that preparation's already commenced. They could actually be repair orders, in which case we never let any customer make a change to a repair order. But what happens is if they try and do that, they can view the detail, but if they go to, say, change or cancel, it's going to tell them that booking preparation's commenced and to contact the dealership directly. So we've covered for, provided the flexibility around letting the dealers control what can be changed, how close to the appointment date it can be changed as well. These enhancements also complement our future service appointment solution. So if you are using future service appointments, and we've got quite a few dealers that do, where you can pre-book your customer for their next service at the time of picking up the vehicle from their current service. So for example, I may be picking up my car that's had its 30,000 K service today. It may have 15,000 kilometre service intervals. So I know the next service is going to be in 9 months if I was to go by book, but I've got a high mileage car, and therefore, based on average, I may actually be due back in 6 months. So future service appointments will forecast when that date is, allow the advisor to book it in as part of the invoicing process in Era Power, and the result of that, being the appointment that's created, appears back in here in online service bookings. So you could then say to your customer, we've pre-booked you for your next service, but you can log in online, which we can register you for now if you don't have an account, and you can modify that to suit if that date, when it gets closer, doesn't suit you. Okay, so just to finish off what I wanted to run through today, I'm going to go into Era Power into an existing appointment. And in here on the left-hand side, you can see there's an OSB tick box. If you can see my cursor, and right next to it's a logged in tick box as well. And then to the right of that is the device drop down. So these fields are available also in EraNet, but obviously in Era Power as well. So, and what it allows your dealership to do is identify where this appointment came from. So in this case, I can tell it was created in online service bookings. It was created from the customer logging in and booking the vehicle in, and they actually booked in on the PC, not a mobile device. And then there's some reports you could run off the back of that. So for example, we have some dealerships that for online service bookings, they run a report writer report to send off a SMS to the customer on a different schedule to what it would be if the customer had booked themselves. So there's some flexibility around that as well. Okay, so that covers pretty much everything I wanted to show today. As I mentioned, it is basically a high-level overview to show you some of the features and benefits, what it can provide your customers. And I referred back to before some of our study around customers and dealerships using online service bookings, and that most of the although it allows the service department to take bookings 24 hours, 7 days a week, and we do see bookings coming at very early hours of the morning. Importantly, most of the traffic was still around 10 o'clock in the morning, which surprised me. But the offset of that is that that time is generally coming to an end of a busier period for the service department, but it gives the service department that time back rather than picking up phone calls and modifying appointments or creating appointments because the customers are doing it themselves. And then out of the online bookings that dealerships are taking, and we've got some dealers that do well in excess of 200 or 300 a month through online service bookings. Out of those, some 30 to 35% are actually outside of hours, created outside of hours. So if you've got any questions, I'll ask you to unmute your microphone and ask your question. If your microphone doesn't work, or if you prefer, just type it into the chat window and I'll see that come up as well. No questions? All right, look, if there's any other information you need to know, or I didn't cover something that you think about later, as I mentioned, please make sure you let your business relationship manager know. They'll certainly be able to answer the questions or get a response for you or an answer for you to your question. And yeah, then hopefully that will help you understand the solution a bit better. As I mentioned, there are lots of configurations and controls around this integration. So how the dealership actually configures it and how it behaves with their customers can be different from one dealer to another. So today's session is recorded. So it will be available also in the ServiceNow knowledge base. It will take a few days to get it up there, but certainly is recorded, and you can share that internally with your team members if you wanted to show them as well. So I've got a question from Peter about, does this support Subaru Capri servicing? Look, Subaru Capri servicing, if you're using the super service menus, which I would say that most dealers are, the validation of those comes in the super service data. So in direct answer to your question, yes, because the super service data should filter those accordingly, and then the result of that is also displayed in online service bookings. The important thing to remember with online service bookings is it doesn't rely on its own process, and the benefit of that is the process that your advisors see and use in Era Power is exactly what online service bookings uses. So there should be no discrepancies between the two. And it also means that there's no maintenance outside of the DMS to do things like update pricing or loan car availability or opcode mapping, because all of that is all read in real time out of the DMS. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for taking the time to join. I appreciate your time late in the afternoon today. Hopefully you got some valuable information out of today for those who already have online service bookings and perhaps those who don't but interested in it. Please make sure you contact your BRM if you want to know any more. We get you some answers. As I mentioned, this video will be shared in ServiceNow in Knowledge Base. For those who are running Era Power and online service bookings today, the change and cancel features will come out in the 3.2 release, and there'll be some documentation that comes out to support that and instruct how to turn that on if you wanted to do so. All right, thank you everyone. I hope you have a great afternoon and appreciate your time.